Well, good afternoon, everyone. We are just waiting for a few more people to join, and then we'll get started. Only a few minutes now. Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for the second in a series of Informatica Hero sessions. We do this once a month, and today's topic is on master data management. I'll be handing over to Joe Sullivan, who is our Master Data Management Solutions Specialist for APJ. Joe, all the best today.
Thanks, Brad. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of those that have joined, wherever you happen to be in the world. Thanks for joining us. As Brad said there, we're here to talk about MDM today and to try and help you. The purpose of the presentation is really to help you become an MDM hero within your organisation. So what we're going to cover really is a little bit of reasons around why people deploy MDM. So MDM, the term MDM has is sort of a technical term that tends to can have a bad name within some organisations. So we're going to try and help you understand a bit more about the business drivers behind that and really link any MDM initiative within your organisation to the key business goals and the business drivers around that and talk to you about how we can do that. We'll then talk through some of the differences between CRM and MDM. So that's a question I commonly get when I talk to customers, is that we have CRM, but how does MDM, why do we need one or the other? And we'll talk a little bit about what that is and how they work together, and then we'll do a functional overview of some of the key MDM capabilities, and then a screenshot walk through our Customer 360 application so that you can see what it looks like within the Informatica tools. So we'll take questions at the end, otherwise you can ask them as you go along via the chat function. So what's the key driver of MDM? And it really comes down to the changes that we're seeing within the world at the moment, I suppose, with industries being turned on their head, businesses rethinking the way they operate in their business models, and under that sort of blanket term that we've come to know as digital transformation. And that's really people understanding who your customers, your products, and your key pieces of information are. Is fundamental to digital transformation any way you're going to digitize your business. And so that's really the key driver that we see driving MDM, but I expect that's probably a little bit abstract for some of you, so I'm going to dig into a little bit more detail around some of those specific benefits that you can get in business drivers around master data management. And they tend to fall within four major buckets, that being customer experience, operational efficiency, governance of risk, and strategic goals. That's certainly how I see them and how I see customers typically talk about them. So starting with customer experience, what does that mean? And that's really all around just being able to understand who your customer is, not just understand who they are when they come in the store and who they are online, but really getting that single understanding of who the customers are so that you can identify what household do they live in, who else lives in that household, what relationships do we know about them with your business and your employees, different brands, etc. Really understanding that full 360-degree view of your customers. And the aim of that is then to be able to personalise those interactions. So when you're dealing with a customer, you want to be able to make that as personal an interaction as possible because that's what customers expect these days. Really, and across all channels. So going from just being single channel or multi-channel but isolated and not really understanding interactions and allowing people to switch between them, but driving that omni-channel engagement so that whether people are speaking to you on the phone, whether they're going into the store, whether they're on the mobile or on the website, there is that seamless engagement and being able to understand who that customer is and make sure you're presenting consistent product information and service information to them. And that then allowing you, having that view of customers to better sell to them, so being able to in real time make cross-sell and upsell decisions to them that are focused and personalised towards what they want, and hopefully then reducing the churn. So having customers realise that it's easy to do business with you, they like doing business with you, and hence they're less likely to look elsewhere and leave. So that's the sort of customer experience, and that's how MDM sort of helps underpin and drive these. Other areas are within the operational efficiency, and that's really around being able to reduce those data errors, helping you automate data processes so that you've got that consistent view of your customer and you're not having to continually export them out to Excel and do manual remediation, etc. Which then leads to much better reporting and analytics, management information, etc. on who your customers are. Do we have 1 million customers, or really is there a lot of duplicates in there and we only have 500,000 customers? And being able to answer those questions can be quite important. It can also help you get control of that information that's scattered across the organisation and support system consolidation. I'd be amazed at how many organisations I go into. I once went into an organisation in the UK and it had 42 different ERP systems. And they were too scared to shut some of those systems down due to not knowing what data is in there and where it's being used. So being able to get that control at a single centralised view can help you do that. Can also help you decrease the time and speed up implementation of new systems, because any new system you bring on needs clean data loaded into it, and if you already have that master, that helps build that out. It's also around managing reference data and the central management of reference information, about currency codes and country codes and those types of things that tend to be scattered and disconnected across the organisation. So that's the sort of second major part. We move on to governance and risk, particularly financial services. This is a key driver and has traditionally been a big driver in those highly regulated businesses. But now with the advent of GDPR going live there a couple of weeks ago, that's really driving the need for MDM and the management of consent, mastering and where your customer data is and what you hold on customers. But also AML, KYC are much widely required across a lot of industries now, not just financial services. So being able to control that information and better adhere to those, understanding your risk in both your customers and your suppliers. Is there some sort of systematic risk that you need to be aware of, that if that supplier supplies a large percentage of your products, you have a risk with them, and being able to understand that they're actually a conglomerate, and if they go down, you're going to lose more than one supplier. Also then around that fraud identification, being able to understand patterns and better understand who customers are. Do they have aliases? Do they have multiple accounts? And is there patterns of behaviour that's going on? Being able to link that to locations and events, etc., to be able to identify fraud is another goal. And then lastly, the sort of overarching long term is around those strategic goals of you may be an acquisitive business, so being able to bring on, when you acquire a new business, being able to bring their data on more quickly and get the synergies that the business case outlined much more quickly can be important. Faster onboarding of your customers, just rather than taking potentially days or weeks to bring them on, you want to be able to bring them on in minutes using third-party information and rapidly enable those new business models that are required in this digital world. So they're the sort of big picture of the business drivers around MDM that you'll come across, and you'll hear within the business, and you'll know that MDM can help support that. But the key, certainly in the last couple of years, the one that's really driving that seems to be the customer experience. And that's the time and time again in any industry, it's customer experience what people are talking about, and that's why they're talking to us about master data management. Gone are the days where we compete whether on cheapest price or product differentiation. It's now all about the third strategy, which is customer experience. And even today, as we can see in this graph, we can see that's the most important way of competing against for most businesses, and that's going to become more important as we go forward. And the reasons for that really are clear, with a survey in the US recently showing that 52% of the people surveyed had experienced poor customer service and had changed businesses and changed providers with an estimated value of $1.6 trillion. So this is really happening, and it's really costing organisations money. So it's important that we take it seriously. And it's really becoming table stakes as well, as you can see with another survey here by Gartner that found basically 9 out of 10 organisations are now looking to compete on customer experience. So it's not if you're going to compete on it, it's how do we do it, and it's really table stakes. So it is really important that we understand who our customers are, understand who where our data is. And there's no better example of seeing how important this is with the stratospheric rise of the tech giants over the last 5 to 10 years. With the seven logos that we're seeing here on screen, no coincidence that they're the 7 most valuable companies in the world. There for a period a few weeks ago, Facebook dropped out and became 8th, and I think the recent rise in its share price is back as the 7th most valuable company. And this is all based around their control, the data that they understand about their customers and how they can use that to provide a much better customer experience. A great example of this is with Netflix. So another one of those tech companies that's up and coming, not quite as big as these guys, but they did an internal survey recently and estimated that the value of personalisation and their focus on customer experience with their recommendation engine is worth over $1 billion. And they put that down to really when someone logs into Netflix, looking for a new show to watch, they have 60 to 90 seconds to find them something. Otherwise, they tend to lose interest and may go and do something else. And those customers that do that a few times will eventually churn and leave their business, and they believe that having personalised recommendations keeps them sticky to the Netflix business and is worth $1 billion to them. Other industries, we see some statistics on banking that they believe that tech giants are going to, with their superior customer experience, are going to come in, disrupt their business. The same is going on in insurance and many other organisations. Nearly 50% of Generation Y respondents to a survey in Asia saying that they would buy their insurance from a tech giant rather than a traditional insurance company if they offered it. So, these guys have worked out customer experience. They know how to harness their data, and that's been hugely beneficial for them. I think the best example of this is Amazon. I lived in the UK for quite a number of years, probably the best part of the last 10 years, where I was a massive fan of Amazon. I'm not a big shopper, I must say, but just the flexibility and the customer experience you got with Amazon, where you've forgotten your wife's birthday and you needed a present for the next day, you could go on there and you could have it delivered the next day, and no one was the wiser. So it's no surprise to me that Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, is the richest man in the world, and that they have a market cap of nearing $1 trillion, which they're likely to be the first company to make that. And this is all down to their sort of founding philosophy, which is all around customer experience. So we should see this quote from Jeff Bezos, and there's many quotes from Jeff Bezos, and that's really around the reason that he sees they've done better than their peers is their focus on their laser-like focus on the customer, understanding who the customer is, what their wants and needs are, and how they can address it. And as we all know, Amazon, particularly those tuning in from Australia, where Amazon has just entered the market and is really putting the fright into the retail business, but really every industry should be worried about Amazon coming in because they're just so good at this. They've disrupted so many industries, gone through, starting with books, into retail, cloud computing, as a sideline really, which they now dominate. They've taken over grocery in the US. I know they've now launched Amazon Air. They're moving into healthcare and health insurance. And then they're starting to disrupt insurance, buying insurance startup in India recently. So, there's no industry that isn't open to them because of the information they have on their customers and the way they can improve their customer experience. So it's something, regardless, not just the retailers, but we all have to be aware of this and what we can do about it. And so that's when a lot of organisations say, well, what do we do? How do we go about improving customer experience? Yes, we understand it's important and we want to do something about it. And what I find is a lot of them are looking for that silver bullet. And they tend to reach for the CRM silver bullet. So they talk to the big vendors of CRM who tell them that, sure, we can sort out your customer experience and improve how you deal with your customers. And they'll show them these great demonstrations of all this information being held in one place of all your policies and accounts and previous history, etc. But what they don't tell you is that they don't actually bring that information together. They can display it, but they're only one piece of the puzzle, really. And so if we look at sort of background of what a CRM is and where it came from, it helps explain this a little bit. Because when we read the marketing out of them, you would think that they are that silver bullet. But CRM originated out of contact management, as a digital contact management system in the sort of early 80s, and really just a digital Rolodex, as everyone had on their desk at that time. And then they realized that they actually wanted to manage the whole sales process, moved into morphed into Salesforce automation, managing the end-to-end sales process from prospect through to converted sale. And then there was a sort of realization of, hey, we should be filling this sales pipeline as well. So they started acquiring marketing automation tools with Salesforce, for example, buying Pardot. And then there was a realization that, well, actually, after people become customers, we need to have customer service capabilities as we converted them to a customer, and often in the customer service capabilities, Microsoft with USD or Unified Service Desk, etc. So you had these multiple capabilities, and the vendors were all telling us, well, this is a single application, this is Salesforce, this is Dynamics, and we're doing application, but really under the surface they're different, disparate applications, not using the same version of the customer, and often different technologies. If we're lucky, they're integrated like this, but realistically, there's often this type of integration going on, and so you don't have that seamless view, and you still have to manage the customer data underneath these systems, which then, when you start to look around the organisation, and particularly those that have joined today from large organisations, you realise that each of your business units potentially got their own implementation of a CRM. Sometimes they're different, sometimes they're the same. But even when they're the same, we find with Salesforce they have different orgs, etc. And so there's still this huge effort to get the data in sync, so that when someone contacts your brand, any business unit of your brand, and it's really common in banking where you bring the credit card department and they tell you, oh, you need to ring back about your savings account on a different phone number, which is really frustrating and really terrible customer experience. And often that's down to the way their systems are set up. So as you said earlier, CRM, they are really important systems, and I'm not going to say they're not, but they're only one piece of the puzzle. When we really look at how we solve customer experience and how we address customer experience across an organisation, there are a lot more systems and components and capabilities involved in this beyond CRM. So, when you're starting to have your social media campaigns and you want to understand how people are interacting there, you have your website, maybe an e-commerce portal or some sort of self-service portal. It's typically going to be separate. Lots of focus now on the sort of big headlines around AI and chatbots and what they're going to do for us. Again, they're typically going to be run by a different provider that's gathering data and specialising in this. You have your business partners and third-party information. IoT is another big area that we're seeing a big uptick in, and I'm sure we'll hear about when we have our big data hero session. But basically, common to all these is being able to have that foundation of master data, customer information about your products, information about your locations and personnel, etc., and being able to share that right across them is really important. So when people talk about CRM being the silver bullet, yes, it is important, but you need to make sure you can link it and seamlessly with the rest of your organisation. So a good example of this, this is in the news within the last month actually, and for those joining out of Australia, you know who Telstra is. It's no secret they were written up in the headline of this article on the ABC News. And it's about two of their customers that were both called Stephen White. And there's something sort of unique about these two Stephen Whites in that they're both born on the same day and in different years. So they're both born on, let's say, the 25th of March, but in two separate years, 1 year apart. And so Telstra have invested heavily in that, and they're a big CRM customer around that. But it's clear from this story that happened that basically these two Stephen Whites got mixed up, and they started getting each other's bills. And so they could log in and they could take the personal information of the other Stephen White. One lived in Queensland, one lived in New South Wales, I think. And they started getting text messages. How it turned up was one got a text message saying that his NBN internet router would be delivered soon, which he thought was a bit strange because he already had one. And then the other one started getting texts about transactions on his credit card about having watched an online movie the night before. And so they contacted Telstra and said, hey, there's something going on here. And they were told, no, you're the same person. There's no problem here. Our system's right. Which clearly it wasn't. And the way they got to the bottom of it, they actually contacted each other on social media, were able to talk to each other. And one Stephen rang up the other Stephen and said, hey, did you enjoy E.T. last night? He was sort of amazed. How did you know I watched E.T. last night? And it just really shows that if you're just relying on single systems and don't think about the data underneath, These records had clearly been erroneously merged together, and they had no way of backing that out, no way of being able to address and see how that occurred. And at the time of publication a couple of weeks ago, this still hadn't been resolved. So that's going to have huge regulatory issues with them that haven't been reported to the Information Commissioner, and Telstra will likely get fined, I would assume. And the reputational damage could be quite big as well. So you have to look at your system and see, could you avoid having this problem with the way that you've managed your solution. And clearly, looking at the Facebook post of this article on the ABC website, it's not the first time. I don't know whether you can read them or not, but lots of people saying, hey, I had the same problem with my account getting mixed up, etc. So it's a common problem, and not having that underlying infrastructure to manage the data can be quite a big problem. Here's a quote from Gartner that I won't dwell on, but it's really just talking about looking at those that implement CRM and don't implement master data management with it to manage the underlying information. Basically, see a 25% reduction in the revenue gains that they would expect from this investment. So that can be a huge bottom line impact on your business. So that's where we then get into MDM, as you've all joined to hear about. There's some of the reasons and the driver behind it and the problems that you might see across your organisation if you don't have it. So what is MDM? For some of you, I'm sure you're quite familiar with this. For others, it will be quite new to you. And so master data management is all about that management of the data. It's not a front-end application. It's about taking the information that's fragmented across your organisation. It could be in legacy systems. It could be in third-party systems, it could be in the cloud, wherever it is and however many systems, it doesn't matter. It's bringing that information together, be it about your customers or products, suppliers, locations, whatever's key and important to your business, being able to govern that information, bring it together, create a single view, and then most importantly, make that data available to all of those parts of your organisation that need to use that. Be they mean back-end product development, wanting to understand who the customers are and how they typically use it, through to your sales and website, online channels, etc. And so that's the concept of what MDM is. It's not trying to replace those front-end applications. It's not trying to be CRM. It's all about a place to manage and govern that information about your organisation. So here's a quick example of how we bring that information together. One of the critical pieces of master data management is being able to have very accurate matching to be able to merge together and create that single view. So if we look at this example, we look and our matching engine would identify that Thomas Leclerc is actually the same person across these 3 different systems. It could be 3, it could be 33. We would look to identify all the instances of that person, with each system containing different pieces of information about Thomas. So they all have his name, but some might have bank balances and email addresses, phone numbers that don't exist in the other one. So we then bring that into the master data management system and we create what we call a golden record. That is our single best view using the Informatica trust framework to identify what is the best attribute to put into this single view. And that might be because we trust the name that's been entered into CRM better, or it's the most recent update, etc. So we build that up and that gives us a much more complete single view of the customer from across those systems. And as I said, the matching behind that is really important, and the key driver for that is you need to have the business trusted. If it makes a decision and decides that these 2 records should be automatically matched together, you can't have the case that Telstra had with the 2 student rights being matched incorrectly, and their year of birth should be a big giveaway to the matching behind that. Say, look, these aren't the same person. They're similar, but they're not the same. Let's push that up to a data steward. So under the cover, though, we try to automate that as much as possible using these different techniques around nicknames and phonetics and tokenization for words that are in the wrong order, etc., to be able to give that most trusted matching and automate as much of that as possible. We also understand that, and we spent 25 years tuning this and building it out in different countries, that there's cultural differences in the way that names and other pieces of information are matched, and it differs between countries. So the obvious ones are, a Chinese data set versus a Latin language data set in English, or however it may be, are obvious. There's also cultural differences between names in Australia to the UK, to the US, to Spain, etc. And so we've built these tailored population packs to help us have much more accurate matching behind that information. once we've matched that information together, we then look to identify relationships. What do we know? What does one system know about this customer? For example, we might know that they have a bank account. If we're looking at the core banking system, we can see that a bank account. But we can also identify from their address where they live, and then look at across the rest of the organisation and see, well, who else lives there? And we might be able to identify a wife and a child that also lives at that address. And hence, we know that there's some relationship between them. We can then see, well, what other accounts do we have? Let's have a look at that full view of our customer here, Christopher Ling, and how he interacts with our organisation, but also the other people in his household, because they tend to have a big influence on each other. What does that tell us about how we market and deal and serve Christopher when he calls in or comes into the organisation? So being able to create that single view of the customer is hugely valuable once you pull that information together. Also enrichment with third-party data. So once we've created that single view, we can then overlay third-party data sources, which demonstrates an example I've used here, but it could be from any number, be they government available ones or third parties, or wherever it may be, which not only allow you to enrich that information and provide a lot of information like credit scores and whatever else they might provide, mosaic scores and experience, but also update some of the information you have because they may have verified that the registered address is slightly different, as we can see here. And so not only does this give us a much richer profile that we manage within the MDM tool, and actually help us from having multiple subscriptions to demonstrate straight across the organisation, but it also provides us things like hierarchies and other relationships. So in this example, if we had silver benches, we might think, well, they're an independent customer, we'll extend credit to them of $1 million, they look pretty good. But then when we actually overlay the third-party hierarchy information, we realise that, well, actually they're a subsidiary of gold benches, and which we also do business with and we've already extended credit to, but they're also part of platinum benches, which we didn't realise, and we're doing business with two other parts of that business. So, maybe we're overexposed. This is not something we can extend credit to. Or vice versa, our sales teams might see openings and say, well, we're doing business with half of this conglomerate. Maybe we should be doing business with the others. So these are another thing that MDM really helped drive and push this information into your front-end sales application, be that CRM or anything else, or your back-end credit assessment underwriting tools. So then when we move on, the behind the scenes and driving us and helping us govern that is once we've created that single view is inbuilt workflow that really allows us to drive business rule-driven governance and make sure that when a change is done to someone's master data record, we can detect that and push it through for approval. Or when a two record is detected, like the Stephen White example, that are similar but not the same, so that we can flag that up, make that a task, and have someone go manually look at that and maybe ring them up if they have to look through to confirm whether that's the same person or whether they're two different people. And so underpinning this is a workflow-driven governance. This is an overview of all the capabilities. I'm not going to run through that given we don't have enough time, but certainly there's a lot of capabilities within the Informatica tool. And then this all forms part of the sort of the foundational capabilities of that MDM, what we're talking about. And then on top of that, what we've then built are these solutions that are focused on particular sets of use case, often data types. So Customer 360, we also have a Customer 360 dedicated for Salesforce. It's been built into the Salesforce.com platform to provide these types of capabilities. We have a Product 360 that's focused on the management of product information, particularly important in retail, manufacturing, distribution, and those that are trying to make the products available in an omnichannel world. Supplier mastering and Relate 360 if we want to master our data in Hadoop and in the big data world. But, what I'm going to talk and show you a few screenshots of today are the Customer 360, which, as I said, the customer experience being key for business driver. This is the area that we tend to make the most, having the most discussions about at the moment. So, just as background to what we're showing here, where it might fit within an organisation. So the screenshots I'll show you here really showing that master data management's been implemented within an organisation across all of the back-end legacy systems, giving you that single view. It's been integrated with any third-party external data sources and managing them, and then making that information available for some of your front-end applications, be they CRM, new chatbot, application, AI, e-commerce, whatever it may be. So that's where it fits. On this diagram, I had shown that data integration and data quality are two important components within your master data management that you can assume that they're wrapped up in that master data management block. So when you log into MDM, what I'm showing here is our business user application, sort of aimed at data stewards and business users. This is a role-based application, so it's tailored to the role of whoever logs in, so that they see the information that's most pertinently important to their job role. So this person's logged in as a data steward. Most important to them is really managing those tasks that have been generated by their workflow. These might be merge tasks of just saying these two records are similar. Can you please review them and decide whether we're going to merge them or not merge them? Or it might be approval of a change has been made to this data that we need to approve by management, or we've seen someone has closed their account, we want to trigger someone to look into and do something about that. So we can customize those workflows and these tasks to be whatever we want. We can also embed third-party information if need be. So here we will embedded some reporting information, a dashboard around executive club memberships that's pertinent to this person's role, but it could be your internal intranet, it could be Twitter feeds or social media feeds, or whatever you like can be embedded into this. It's very flexible, and we tailor it to the person's role. So what you can then do, and this is one of the key features that MDM provides that typically isn't available, and that's just a single location to be able to search across your data. So here we can search across all customers across any of the systems within the organisation that have been connected up. But if we've got multi-domain, it could be looking for products, it could be looking for locations, stores, etc. This is giving us our single point to be able to search for that. So in this example, we've searched for Joseph Broad, one of our customers. We can see that we've also got some, he's a person, but we've also got some organisation customers with Joseph in it. Down the right-hand side, we have filters, etc. And so this is a solar-powered source search for the techies that know search technology. So it's very flexible. You can do wild Google-like searching of your data across the organisation. So let's open up the Joseph record, Joseph Broad here, and this is our single view of him. Again, this would be tailored to how you're using the information. Lots of organisations have this as a relatively simple, just seeing that single golden record of Joseph with all his addresses and emails, etc. With most of their front-end staff using having this data pushed into CRM to make the CRM experience better. In this case, we've shown that within Customer 360 can actually embed a lot more widgets and make this a lot more functional. With Tableau widgets being embedded in here, some information about next best action if this was being made available to a salesperson. We can see the Twitter feed that's linked to this account, so if you've got these social media on file, we can have that Twitter feed coming up and showing us what's going on. So all sorts of information, this could be customized to be important to whoever that user is. And again, that relationship, we can quickly see where does Joseph fit in his 360-degree view. Now in the Customer 360, we can have this standard relationship management view, or we can actually also use a graph-based view. So this is where if we've linked it to our Relate 360 tool, we can embed this within it so that you can see a full 360-degree view, including transactions and other pieces of information. So here we can see what airline he flies with, we can see what type of cars he rents, any claims that he's put in, with complaints, etc. And so that's all available. We can see who else lives in the same household, maybe that's his wife Samantha and child, and then see their details. So all of this information can be easily clicked through to and navigated around. So behind the scenes, we can also see, well, what records have been brought together to give us this single view. So here we can see, this is a different customer, unfortunately. I didn't have this screenshot available when I put this together, but we can see that 4 records have been merged together here to provide our single view of Velvet. We've got 2 Salesforce records. We've got an admin system and a legacy system. And so information from that is being matched together, and the blue highlighting which attributes have been chosen to make up that golden record. So we can certainly see that lineage and background of how did we come to this golden record, where that information came from. And if there's problems with that, we can change it within that screen. We can also go, and this is relevant to the Telstra example earlier, and unmerge those records. So if there's been a problem and for some reason we've matched and merged two records that shouldn't be, we can choose to unmerge them. So the data steward can select that, say I want to unmerge this record, delinking it from this golden record and pushing it out to be its own account again. And so we can simply do that and that'll take that away. We can also manually merge. So if a customer rings in and says, why am I getting two statements? Or you're not linking my accounts together for whatever reason, that can be easily fixed by just going into that person's record, saying that we want to add another record into this. We can search for that. So in this case, we've selected two examples of John Smith, and we want to link them in so that now when we see the golden record, it has been created from. It's now got, rather than the three original ones, the two we've added in, and we're now getting the golden record across all 5 records. So these are just some of the examples of the functionality and how simple this can be done with the master data management tool. So that's the sort of very quick high-level overview I wanted to give you of the tool. We can certainly talk a lot more about that in follow-up sessions and show you more about how this would work and how it relates to your particular business and industry. But I just want to finish on a question that we often get of where do we start? How do we go? I've started linking, doing some integration and improving the data in the data warehouse. I've done some data quality on that. How do I then move further on the MDM journey? And it tends to sort of go in this sort of approach where we start with very low complexity when you're really around the integration data quality, quite low complexity, but tend to be quite low business value. So then as we move into mastering a single domain, and that might be customers, if that's what you, it might be products, it might be some other domain, but we then move up and we start to add more business value, but we get slightly more complex. And then over time, in subsequent phases, we might add in, if we started with customer, we add in products and we add in locations, and we start to link and create a more complex 360-degree view before bringing in some external data sources, so enriching with that Dun & Bradstreet information. And then further enrichment with our interaction, big data type sources, social media, IoT data. And so this is the sort of the journey that people tend to go on. You don't have to always go through this, so it's really working with the business of what's our vision, where do we want to be, and how do we build the technology that supports that, and that might mean that you only really need to master your customers or products, and that's going to get you certainly to where you want to go. But you've got the flexibility to go beyond that tool like MDM. So that brings me to the end of what I wanted to talk you through today. We've covered a lot of information there around the business drivers and the background and what the MDM supports and what drives it within the business. We've talked through some of the functionality and we've gone through screenshots there. So does anyone have any questions? If you do, please ask them on the chat.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for that. So it looks like we have a few questions coming in, and please feel free to ask any more. So Joe, we've got one around data quality. So what is the difference between MDM and why can't we just use data quality?
So that's a good question. It's a really common one that we get, and that's data quality tools tend to have some matching capabilities. They obviously do the standardization, and really data quality is part of our MDM offering and simplicity in how it works. The data quality tends to only take you so far though, because the matching is quite rudimentary at least compared to the MDM matching. It doesn't work on very large data sources, and it doesn't persist that golden record and allow you to build up that profile and add in new attributes that maybe your other systems aren't capturing. So there's quite a big difference, although some people tend to confuse them and say, well, data quality can be much less. What data quality will only take you so far, and then really if you want to start synchronizing that information across the organization, bringing in third-party data sources, data quality begins to fall down. But it is an implicit part of MDM, but normally it only takes you to basic level.
Okay, and now I've got another one around how would you manage product information, and is it different to managing customer information?
Product information, did you say, sorry?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So yes, so as you've seen here, I focus mostly on customer information in the sort of examples I gave here. There are quite a lot of similarities and overlaps with how we look after product information, but then there's quite a few differences as well, because customer information tends to be scattered and fragmented across multiple sources because customers are providing it to different parts of the business, where product information is more centrally created often. It might come in from your suppliers, but often you're creating it centrally. So the approach and the architecture we take is a little bit different, but that's the beauty and the flexibility of an MDM solution, whether that's bringing together and aggregating lots of different sources or creating it centrally and then managing the process of enrichment throughout the different departments, which is more what we do with product information to make it available to the channels. An MDM tool can manage that, and that's why the workflow is so important as well, particularly with data-like products.
Okay, and then it looks like we've got one more, which Brad, you might be able to answer actually. Where can someone go to find more information?
Yeah, hi Sarah, thanks for asking the question. I think the important thing is we offer a Success Academy for all of our platforms, and so if you're on the Informatica website, just look up the Informatica Success Academy. A number of different web tools for searching for case studies, looking at information around how do you start your journey, as Joe mentioned. And if you're just looking for data sheets or information around business cases and those sort of things, can all be found on the Informatica website. There's also some learning tools built in there as well. So if you're looking at want to look at a specific product and want to start your journey in learning about it, Success Academy is a great place to go. And I think as we're coming to a close, I also want to just point out that we do have a number of these sessions still to go each month, and we will be holding them around this time each month. And I want to thank Joe for putting on the MDM presentation. I think it was very worthwhile, especially in this particular time. We're certainly living in a world that's very transformational and exponentially changing. So having those 1%ers and being able to do something different than your competitors is very, very important. So, this session will go again in 1 month's time for around, I think it's cloud, and it'll be around our Informatica cloud solution, application integration, API management, and the like. So please join us for that session on the 3rd of July. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. All the best. Take care.